Being a mid-tier in Smash Ultimate is weird because it feels like while you aren't one of the best characters in the game, you always can do something, and it feels like mid-tiers go up and down the tier list all the time, based off results, based off of finding something broken. Mid-tiers are some of the most discussed characters in the game, not because they think they find any crazy tech, but because they seem to be underestimated by the people who main them. Personally, I think people just want to be right so bad that they're going to call a character underrated every 5 seconds, even though they forget what makes them actually mid-tier. Not that they're bad, but they're in Smash Ultimate where broken characters thrive. It takes a lot to become a Steve, and with 80 characters, there are only so many slots you can put in top tier, but I still think we can talk about these characters and see if they actually are underrated, or we did just find the peak of them and people are just good. Let's talk about that with these characters. First, let's talk about Isabelle. Isabelle actually has a good amount of reps of the character now. We have 3 that are in the top 150, with Rookie, who's number 140. He has an Isabelle, an Olimar, a Pit, and a Villager. Most Isabelles can play Villager, they're not that different, and is really solid. Then we have Kept, who's one of the oldest but most consistent top reps of Isabelle, who also has a, of course, Villager and a Diddy Kong he's been developing for his bad matchups, because Isabelle does suck a lot versus swords and Diddy Kong does very well, who is only at 89, but that's still very good for how hard the meta is right now. And we have Furara Ramen, who is number 87 in the world with an Isabelle Game & Watch combo, which I find hilarious because mid-tier characters using top tiers as their secondaries is always just funny to me, but of course Game & Watch is one of the best characters in the game, so if you're gonna have a secondary, that's gonna be a pretty good spot to be in. And just as Albert mentioned, we're gonna be talking about Twitchy, who's definitely one of the best, if not the best Isabelle in North America, and while not in the top 150, she is incredible with the character, and it just shows that there are so many good reps of this character out there. I think Isabelle is one of the best examples of a character just getting more and more people to play her, and people realizing that she isn't as bad as people once thought. Like, she has a good amount of stuff going for her. She has jab into up tilt, she has jab into down smash. Her zoning, which Villager does have, actually leads to extremely good advantage state because she can frame trap really well. She has really good frame data, she can dash attack through stuff, she can up tilt and up air just to kill you. Her F tilt can, all of her kit really does culminate into an advantage state, and that is honestly comparable to top tiers. I think her problem is her disadvantage is not very good. She is a floaty character without much range, so getting down against characters that juggle is a big struggle for her. I think all the sword characters do very well for that reason, and I feel like Isabelle probably has the worst role in the game, or one of the worst roles in the game, so crossing them up isn't an option either. It's kind of funny because Isabelle mostly feels more like a brawler than she does as a zoning character, because you can usually just swing through her zoning tools and destroy them. Like, they're pretty good setups once you do get that hit. In advantage state, they can lead to frame traps and lead to edge guards that you probably can't do with other characters, but I do think it makes it so once you actually do get into that mid-range with Isabelle, she can't really run away because she's pretty slow. She can't use defensive options because those are very slow. Her grab is also slow, so a lot of the time her mid-range sucks so much that any kind of sword character or any character with range just destroys her. And I do think that she doesn't lose so bad that they're impossible with most of the meta, but then you get that crit hit of when you fight Cloud, and Cloud is like really tough. I think Cloud and Pyramith are probably both really tough, but Pyramith is a bit more cheesable, but it's still just like, you get back air on shield, there's not much you can do. You get chased in the air, you get edge guarded, all of his stuff goes through your stuff. He actually is one of the characters that can deal with your ledge trapping really well. He can break your Lloyd, and I don't think one character does define it, but it does bring a precedent where you have to understand that sword characters are so good against her, and swords are not rare. And even if we're not talking swords characters with just even a small amount of speed over her, or a lot of pressure, such as Wolf or Fox or Steve or Min Min or Pichu or any of those characters, can be tough for her to get away from. And then she doesn't have a way to get out of combos, so once you do get in on her, she gets suffocated. And I feel like the best players in the world are good at adapting to this, but it doesn't mean they're immune to it. It does feel like whenever a wolf just runs in and nares on your pellet and hits you for doing it, that it's just a bit unfair. Like, I think Isabelle isn't bad, and I think people understand that now. She has such good, strong confirms and can actually box with people. but to call her not a mid-tier is just kind of ignoring everyone else in the game. And I think people just really want to say like, oh, Isabelle can do it, Isabelle has top reps, Isabelle has moves. Like, yeah, everyone has moves. In an 80 character game, you have to not only be unique but very broken, and while she has good stuff, broken is not what I would call her. It is very likely that Isabelle's advantage state will get stronger and stronger, with, you know, jab being such a wild infinite thing on certain characters in certain positions. But with that neutral and disadvantage, man, I could not put her any more than mid tier. Maybe someone just gets so good that they get top 50 with her anyway, but I still think there's a reason that so many Isabelles have secondaries, because some of these matchups are just so hard. Next, we're going to be talking about Captain Falcon, and we have Andric, who is at 166 right now, still one of the most known Falcons out there, one of the biggest grinders you'll ever see, and Captain Falcon is awesome to watch, and he just pilots the character in such a unique way that his defensive play is some of the best in the world. I do think that he can definitely make it higher than this, but we're going to see in 2026. And the other Falcon is Karage at 53. He is the major winner of Subabato's SP66 and is the first Falcon to ever win a major in Smash Ultimate. And I think there's a big reason why. I made a video a bit ago talking about Captain Falcon being kind of bad. He has a lot of great moves and a lot of insane advantage state stuff, which is what you're going to notice about mid-tiers. A lot of them have crazy advantage states. But I did say that I think his neutral and his disadvantage are bad enough to keep him in mid-tier. I'm going to say that I kind of underestimated Captain Falcon a little bit. While I do think that his neutral is hard, to say it's hard enough that you can actually overcome that by just being one of the best players in the world was foolish. I think that if you do take the time to perfect how you play Falcon, that his neutral isn't going to be so hard you can't. It's not like Sheik. It's not hard in the sense that you're trading all the time or you need to do insane combos all the time, because Falcon doesn't need to. He can get the right hit of something and kill you at a very early percent, and Karage is one of the best players at doing that. I do think that he has more variation than a lot of people, and I do think Falcon has a lot more variation than a lot of characters, which is why I think Captain Falcons are only playing Falcon. Like, you need a lot of dedication to actually hit them correctly, and you can't be playing bad. He's one of the worst characters to autopilot with, because he just takes so much damage if you just play bad and disadvantage, and you get comboed and you get edge guarded. And I think that's why he doesn't really have that great of a matchup spread. But in this type of game, his explosiveness does lead to him just outplaying people quite enough that he can kill you at 40 anyway. There are also two truths that I think really do help Falcon. He's fast, and in Smash Brothers, being fast is king. Like, if you're least fast, you're not going to be so bad that you can't be unplayable, except Marth, but we'll get into that sometime. And he is heavy, so being heavy, he can actually use the rage that he accumulates from taking so much damage to kill you earlier than usual. And I feel like Karage, while having just so much time into Falcon, just gets that right hit so often that I feel like people are just saying like that it's objectively like, okay, Falcon's going to kill you early all the time. But there are many stocks you don't get that right hit, and it feels like Falcon has a killing problem. And even if he has a lot of -1s or even some -2s that are in like the top tiers like Pikachu or Game & Watch, I still think he can cheese his way into winning a major like Karage did. And obviously, I'm not saying that he didn't, outplay people all the time, but the things he was hitting on people were disgusting. I truly do think Falcon can be higher than mid-tier. And if you have any doubt, just go watch Subabato 66. Like, you see the stuff Karage does, and I think most Falcon players who just are feeling like he's a bit hard and a bit overwhelming can just be inspired to just make sure you hit that stuff in neutral, condition your opponent, and mix up on them enough that your stuff becomes consistent. And finally, we're going to talk about Donkey Kong. And I've talked about Donkey Kong before, but we're going to talk about him again because he's back in the conversation, having a top 50 rep, the only top 50 rep in this entire video. But right now we have Kuhaku, who is at 96, who I haven't heard of before of the ult rank. But again, I think Japan is just hard to, just really keep up with if you're not up at like 3 a.m. because their tournaments just happened at that time where I am, and he is impressive. Like, he has, I mean, being number 96 in the world, of course he has to be impressive, but I think Donkey Kong's just becoming so good in neutral, it makes them a lot more fun to watch. Usually you just enjoy Donkey Kong just pressing buttons and mashing on people and hitting the spikes and then doing the clap. It's very funny, but I think Donkey Kong's discipline is just becoming so good that they're getting better and better results. Of course, I would not be talking about Donkey Kong if I wasn't talking about Mild, because Mild Naho is number 44 in the world, and he isn't a solo Donkey Kong, but he is definitely still the best Donkey Kong right now, and he's incredible. I think Donkey Kong's explosiveness has never been in question. I think of all the heavy characters, Donkey Kong has the best advantage state by far. I mean, he has Ding Dong that kills at, you know, pretty solid percent if you get to grab. He has down tilt Donkey Punch, which I hate so much because if you get the trip, it's true and kills really, really early. He has 4 spikes, even though one of them is completely fake, but he has 4 spikes that are pretty easy to hit. He has dash attack, which leads to so many things if you get the strong hit, and even more things if you get the soft hit. He has big limbs. It just feels like he has every tool he can to kill you at absurdly early percent if you're not careful, and even if you are careful, you might still run into it because he hits you with a small part of anything. His spikes are disgusting. His movements are not that hard to knock down because he's so big, but I think he still is one of the best characters in the game at cheesing, and cheesing does go quite far in this game. On paper, there are so many objectively ridiculously hard matchups for Donkey Kong. Like, we have every projectile character in the game, every combo character in the game, but because he can always trade for such a long period of time or use the rage to kill people, if you just have a Donkey Kong who's willing to just hard adapt to how people are moving around, he becomes terrifying. Now, there are characters who are so hard that they never give him the chance to even get in. Something like Duck Hunt, something like Falco, something like Steve. Like, there are a lot of hard matchups out there. That's why Mild does have secondaries for those ridiculous ones. But even if you're willing to just say like, oh, he can just cheese through this and cheese through that, I think calling him a mid-tier means that he probably isn't supposed to do that. I feel like most of the times you're fighting some of the best Donkey Kongs in the world if you're trying to say he's anything but that, but you can just see how much harder they're working and how much they have to fish to kill people at 30, because if they do get the hits that they can, they kill people. And a lot of times I would say that that makes Donkey Kong the truest mid-tier in the game. I think the biggest problem with Smash players, especially when it comes to discussions, is that you don't really consider them at their worst. You always just consider them at their best. Or when you see a clip on Twitter and they do something broken, or when you see them have a good result, you don't really think about the 99 other results that they had to struggle, or the times they got upsetted because the matchup was impossible. You don't really consider that they had a good bracket and they finally were able to play the character into someone who wasn't going to +3 them. You're not yet considering when Donkey Kong is fighting Kazuya, and yeah, he can do pretty solid against Kazuya, but then he got 0 to death on FD and he couldn't do anything about it. And it wasn't even FD, it was Town and City, because they have a really bad stage list and we still have to fight Kazuya on these kind of flat stages, and he has good stages, but we're not going to talk about Kazuya at any point. I do think that people are a bit too recency biased when it comes to this game, and I love to see more growth from this. I really do think that Donkey Kong has some tools, but like many mid-tiers, you have to consider how he fights everyone else. And if they have to work this hard, then I think it's just them being good players. Like, we gotta respect them. And we gotta respect how good Mild is. We have to respect how crazy Kept is. And Karage winning that major, it wasn't just luck, it was hard work. It was many, many hours spent making his Falcon as good as it is. He isn't a new player who picked him up and became amazing like Steve's can do, and Kazuya's can do, and Sonic's can do, and Game & Watch can do. It's not like that. It's a lot of hard work and dedication to make them even have one result. And is it worth it? I don't know. But they love their characters. You can't deny that. They do love their characters. In a different Smash game, these characters being mid-tier means they will be unplayable, and we might get 1 or 2 maybe counter picks. That'll be crazy. But now in this game, we have an environment that they can play them in bracket and not entirely toss, but it's a lot harder for them. I hope we can have a good discussion about it, but either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good day.